Dukes, not much. Just wanted to see if you had. Said he was deciding if he was coming, and wanted to see what your status was before he committed. Had me put him down as maybe? I knew now he wouldn't show. We had ran into each other one other time about 10 years ago, and that time we both turned and ran away. Dukes continued. Well, he's doing well for himself. I saw on Facebook he got a couple of grandkids now, and is closing in on retirement. Good for him. This is where I went pain shopping. I don't, have social media. Can you show me how Charles is doing? Like I said, we lost touch a few years back. Dukes, oh, yeah. Let's check it out. He pulled his phone out and clicked on the app, searched for Charles. Then he saw someone in the crowd. He just handed me his phone, and said, have a look. I need to go talk to somebody, I'll come back over in a minute or two. I thanked him, then scrolled. He was gone for 10 minutes or so. In that time I saw a lot. Years of smiling photos, holidays and vacations. They had 3 kids, and 2 grandkids, and their daughter was currently pregnant with twins. Saw my ex-in-laws. Birthday messages. My once upon a time Phil had a post calling Charles the best son-in-law a man could ask for. I saw events and parties with old friends. It was the life I was supposed to have. I left shortly after. A few days later I got a call from Dukes. He was apologizing profusely for his fox paws in bringing up Charles. I guess after I left, someone who was in the know told him what had gone on between Charles and I. Dukes was a nice man. He didn't have to call, but he did. He ended the call like everyone always does. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Like everyone else who hears this, there was never anything to ask for, because no one can make your memories go away, or stop your heart from hurting. They say time heals all, but for me, time just makes it worse. I can't believe even after all this time, they still find ways to pop back into my life. It's been a lot of years since I updated this post. A part of the story permanently ended recently. I, Eric76M, live a very routine life. I have been mostly alone for the last 48 years. I made a ton of money by being a workaholic, and rarely spending any of it. I still work out regularly, and often get mistaken for a man in his early 50s. I awoke this morning, had breakfast, worked out, watched a movie. This is typical. On most days I go for a walk around noon, especially here in February when it's colder. I leave out of my apartment and head towards a cemetery nearby. I like walking the paths and enjoying the peace. Sometimes when I walk there's a service going on. I always take paths that go around or away from the services. This cemetery is rather large and has a number of single-lane roads going through its grounds. Often when a service is going on, the local funeral homes will put small signs with the deceased's last name on them so that those coming know which way to turn. As I entered and prepared to walk down my usual paths, I noticed the sign said Francis on it. That is the last name of my former best friend Charles, 76M. I decided to walk down that path towards the service. I was not dressed for it, not in my red track suit, but curiosity was winning this day. I came up on the scene just as it must have ended. People were getting back into cars and heading back towards me. As they exited, I could see a large group, probably immediate family, standing around consoling each other. I just stood and watched from a distance. Though I was a little ways out, my eyes have always been perfect. I could see that the matriarch of the group was my ex-wife Moira. I hadn't so much as seen a picture of her in 15 years, but that was without a doubt a 75-year-old version of her. They got her in the car and were coming this way. As it went by I stared into the cabin. The car went a few feet past me and came to a sudden stop. Moira appeared from the back passenger side. She looked at me with tears in her eye. Eric, you've barely aged a day. I can't believe you came. Thank you. She rushed forward as quick as she could and threw her arms around me. I put mine around her. I was caught off guard by the gesture, and just kind of went with it out of reflex. I don't think I had ever felt more awkward. I whispered in her ear warmly, Moira. She looked up at me, and our eyes locked in. I kissed her and she kissed me back, warm and tender. Then she snapped out of it, and gasped audibly. She stepped back, eyes filling with tears. She said the words I never wanted to hear again, for I heard them far too many times. I'm so sorry. Then she scurried into the car. I thought to myself, Charles, I hope you were looking down just now. With any luck I will be her last kiss. Take that, you dead fuck. I was about to turn and walk away when the driver got out and approached. He walked up, hand extended. I shook it. The man said, Eric, right? I'm Scott, my mother's oldest. I don't know how to say this. I know all about your history with my parents. I want you to know they never stopped regretting, at least to some degree, what happened between you all. I hope you'll forgive my mother for her behavior just now. She's been hearing your name for the last few years. My father had dementia towards the end, and she has been enduring him asking where her husband Eric is at for the past couple years. And if he'll be back soon. Seeing you today was unexpected and a lot for her. So I'm sorry. He's gone now and she's grieving. You understand, right? I met his eyes, my boy. I understand all too well what it's like to lose your spouse and best friend in one moment. With that I turned and continued my walk down the path. With everyone gone I stopped by the headstone. It read, "In loving memory, Charles P. Francis, 10/6/1995, 2/14, 2072. Beloved husband and father." I feel like that bottom line should say, "Treacherous bastard and backstabber," but no one asked me. I entertained the thought of coming back at night and pissing on his grave, but I won't. The knowledge that I haunted him for the last of his days will be comfort enough. Today is the 10-year anniversary of Moira's passing. I, Eric 99M, actually took the effort to print out her obituary. Moira Mackenzie Francis passed away after a long battle with breast cancer on May 5, 2085 at the age of 88. She was born to Sean and Teresa Thomas. After college she became a teacher, and later had a long and prominent career as the superintendent of schools for the Worcestershire School District. Moira was married to Charles P. Francis from January 1, 2025 to his passing on 2/14, 2072. She is survived by her 3 children, Scott, Henry, and Jeannie. Her 6 grandchildren, Warren, Robert, Alex, Lorna, Aurora, and Kurt. And her 8 great-grandchildren, Logan, Sean, Rachel, Bishop, Elizabeth, Catherine, Allison, and Peter. Moira loved to spend time with her family and volunteer throughout the community. Services will be held at Wilson Funeral Home. On May 8 at 10 a.m. she will be laid to rest next to her husband at Frost Cemetery. I have read this thing way too many times over the last decade. I let it haunt me to some degree. I've wallowed in sadness for 70 years because of her and Charles. Recently that turned to anger. Ancestry DNA kits had a super sale, 90% off for anyone over 90. I thought, what the hell? I matched with one of my brother's kids. I should have maintained a relationship with them. They moved several states away, but looking back now this is just another regret. I had a few other matches, including a cousin I didn't know, who lives in Hawaii. But the most painful thing I read in my entire report was a match with 2 teen girls here in my city. Their names are Rachel and Liz Francis. Scott was mine. She lied to me. 70 fucking years. She told me she was 6 weeks along. I still remember that day. I still remember the pain thinking 2 months ago I was married to this woman, and now she is 6 weeks along with my best friend's kid. She wasn't. She lied. I met with Rachel, Liz, and briefly with Warren recently. Warren was still having some trouble processing the whole reality of it all. He loved his grandparents. Now knowing the truth has him a bit in disbelief. But he did say he would like to visit me and find out more in the future. The girls have another sister named Allie, but she didn't meet with me. She's young, only 11 years old. So I understand. I got the usual from the girls. There's no way you are 100 years old. You look younger than our grandpa did when he died. Yes, my son died 2 years ago at the age of 68 from cancer. I'm at least thankful I got to shake his hand that day 23 years ago. The girls told me all about themselves, their parents, aunts, uncles, cousins. They have some memories of Moira. Knowing what she did now, I sped them through that part because my memories of her are full of disdain again. Rachel is actually leaving for college soon. Liz plans to join her there in 2 years. We parted ways but they both promised to see me again before school started. I was happy that day. I haven't been happy very much in the last 70 years. I was also angry. I never forgave them for what they did, but goddamn I would have killed them myself if I had known they were hiding my son from me. Nothing I can do now of course. I do hope Warren meets with me again, and brings his brother Robert, and my only great-grandson and eldest great-grandchild Logan. It's the first thing I've looked forward to in a long time. The last dozen or so years of my life have almost made up for the previous 70. It happened in the most fucked up way, but I actually have a family. My biological grandchildren and great-grandchildren have formed a real relationship with me. It was pretty natural, forming with the great-grandkids. Warren and Robert took some time. I understand. They had grandparents, they loved them and thought they were great. There was a little dissension amongst the rest of the family when I came into the picture, as there was worry that Charles may have not fathered any kids. They did DNA tests, and it appears they are Charles' children. At very least they are full siblings, since Charles had been in the ground for over 25 years. They obviously didn't have his sample. All their concerns were further put to bed when one of them finally went through the junk drawer at their family home, which now belongs to Jeannie's son Alex, and found a post-it note with the Logan information to Moira's Google Drive. It had a memoir written by Moira detailing her life, up until she was about 61. And it was the confession that she lied to everyone and stated she was 6 weeks along instead of 10 weeks along. And when Scott was born at 34 weeks, she simply claimed he came early. Charles never knew. She took that to her grave. The rest of it was largely mundane. It confirmed Charles was the father of Henry and Jeannie. It made no mention of any further infidelity on either of their parts, or any major problems really. I found that disappointing. Granted, I never got to read it. I was getting all my intel secondhand from Rachel and Liz, so maybe it was more scandalous than they told me. Probably not though. Those two girls have really taken a liking to me. I don't get to see them that often, but I cherish every moment I do. They got me on all sorts of weird social medias. When we first met I wasn't sure they'd want to see me again. They said they would, but you know how teens are. They did though, and it was that second meeting that finally got me up and on with my life. I went to my doctor. We had a long conversation. He did all the possible tests and confirmed what I knew. I was in shape like no person my age had ever been. He said he couldn't explain it. Perfect vision, hearing, cognition. I have the joints of a man in his 30s despite being a lifelong gymaholic. He said, it's like I just don't age, at least not like the rest of us. It was funny because I always considered it a curse. I still remember my 95th birthday and cursing the heavens why they left me here like this. And I'm not even religious. Saying if they were going to make me suffer through this life forever, why couldn't they at least take my mind from me? What was the point in being like this if I had no one to spend it with? After my doctor gave me the green light, I decided I was going for all of the old man records. The girls helped me manage me social media accounts, and I've become somewhat famous. I have over 2 million followers across my 3 platforms. So far I have claimed oldest man 2, bungee jump skydive fight, in a sanctioned MMA fight. I lost, won the Boston Marathon, visit all 7 continents in the same year. I even got an offer to become the oldest person to ever star in an adult film. I declined. No one needs to see that. The buzz around that is actually what got me like half my followers, if you can believe it. I have a few items on my bucket list still, and figure a few more world records are in order. But best of all, I finally understand what it's like to live